Hi, Cindy here. This is part 2 of some videos on how to do some file management. As photographers, we have a tendency to have huge files, have tons of photos, and we need to store them effectively. The first part of this video was talking about how to set up Time Machine and to make sure that your backup is working. Specifically, it was regarding how to set up Time Machine, but there is an equivalent program in Windows. And you can buy third-party software for Windows. In the Mac world, you don't need to buy third-party software for this. It's already integrated into the operating system. But you definitely want to have your backups running before you do anything that I'm going to talk about next. So you can see that my backup is actually running right now, which it runs once an hour. And so it's doing it right now. Hopefully it won't get in the way. So the next step after you have your initial backup done is to move your files around. Oftentimes what we want to do is make sure that our internal hard drive, which is here for me, we want to make sure that that has enough space on it and have our files in one of our external hard drives. And so there's a couple of different ways to do this. I'm going to focus mostly on photos for this, but basics work for any type of files. So whether it's Word documents or whatever kind of files you have on your system, the basics will work the same. So there's two ways that you can move files around on your Mac or in PC. You can use the file management system. On a Mac, it's called Finder. On your PC, it's called, Windows Explorer. So my favorite way to do this is to open two windows. And so I have a from and a to window. And so all I do is then have my two places open. And I'm actually going to just move some files that are sitting on my desktop just as an example. So we'll say on my desktop, and I'm going to move them onto this hard drive. And this is just so I can show you what I would normally do. So what I would do is I would grab the folder, and I very much like this version where you have the columns that show what's in the folder. But let's use this one that's just got a couple of images in it and say that we want to move it onto the hard drive. What I would do is actually just click and drag it over and drop it down. So you can see it comes in here. We can see that we have the two files. Normally what I would do is open the Get Info or About file on your PC, and I would check to make sure that the one that I opened from the To folder and the one that I opened from the From folder are the same size. So 3 items, same size, everything is hunky-dory. And then I would go in here and move this to trash. Now, the reason that I do it that way instead of just moving it, which you can do by holding command on your keyboard while you drag it across. The reason that I do it that way is when I did that, so this is the one that I just moved. When I did that, it deleted from here and then moved it to here. If something had gone wrong in that process, I could have potentially lost my file. And that brings us back to why did I make sure Time Machine happened before I did this change? That's because if something goes wrong, you have a copy of your file. So you want to make sure that you're covered no matter what you're doing. So the reason I don't move files, I copy files and then delete the original, is because I don't want to have anything go wrong. The one thing that does mean is that if you're not paying attention and you get ahead of yourself, you can end up with duplicate copies of the folder. So, this is something that you deliberately do file by file, folder by folder, and keep a list of what you're doing. Don't get ahead of yourself. Don't put a whole bunch in to move at once. Just do a few at a time. It will be a lot easier and a lot cleaner. All right, so that's how you do it inside the operating system. If you want to do pictures, I suggest doing it inside of Lightroom. Now, this is if your pictures are still in a catalog inside Lightroom. If your pictures are not in a Lightroom catalog, then they're just files and you move them the way I just showed you. So I have pictures on my internal drive back from 2018, and I actually have already started the process that I do throughout the year of moving them onto my hard drive for longer term storage. And so I'm just going to show you how you would do that. It's basically the same. All you have to do, generally speaking, is grab the folder and drag it to where you want it to be. And you just drag it and drop it, and it will move. The other way to do this is if you already have a folder there. So here I have a folder that's called 12 already. And let's say I want to move the pictures that are in this folder to that folder. You select one picture, then press Command A, that's select all, or you can go up here to edit and hit select all, whichever. And then once you have them selected, just right click on the destination and click Move Selected Folders to this folder. So the other way that you can do this is you can actually click on the folder, the parent folder that you want. You can go, actually, I forgot to select it first. Select all your images, right click on the folder, and say create folder inside 2018. And so I'm going to call this 08 because that's what it is. And I'm going to hit create. And so what that does is it's created the folder and now it's moving the files into it. So just a couple of different ways. You can drag and drop, you can right click and move files, you can right click and create folders. All of those things work. Once the folders are empty, then you need to click on it and go remove, and that will delete it from your hard drive, not only just Lightroom, but also from your hard drive. Okay, so that's how you move images from inside Lightroom. Now there is one other little thing that may happen when you're doing this. I'm actually going to cancel this one. I don't want it to do what it's doing. There's one other thing that can happen is if you have a brand new hard drive or a hard drive that you want to add and move files for in your Lightroom catalog, but it's not showing. So you can see here that I've got my internal, I've got 2 hard drives, but if we look on my system, I actually have 4 hard drives on my system. So if I wanted to use one of those other hard drives to move my files to, I have to make it show up in Lightroom. And there's a small trick to get it to do that, and here it is. So let's say I want to have this passport show up in Lightroom. I'm just going to double click on it to open a Finder window for it. And you can see that it has things on it. This is actually where I store my Photoshop course things, which is why it's not in Lightroom. So what I'm going to do is just ignore everything that's showing there, pretend it's empty. And what we would do is create a new folder, and this will be your parent folder for whatever you're going to do. Normally in Lightroom, we would call it pictures. Pictures is always good. You can see that I actually do have a pictures folder on here already. I'm just going to call this testing, and we'll show you what we do. Okay, so now we have a folder called testing. There's nothing in it. And the first thing we have to do is just add one file to it. So I have a file sitting on my desktop. I'm just going to drag it into testing. And so there it is. So if this was a brand new hard drive, you would have one image on it, and it's inside your parent directory. So if when you look at this, you see it's inside testing. All right. And then we go back over to Lightroom and we go import. And on the import dialog, all of your hard drives always show up in all of your import dialog. So we're just going to pick the one that I have. We're going to pick testing. We're going to import this one folder. Because that picture happens to be in Lightroom already, I have to untick don't import duplicates. And then we're just going to hit import. And what's going to happen is, see, it now shows up as a source directory or as a destination directory in Lightroom. with testing as the parent. So if your parent directory had been photos or pictures, then that's what would show up here. And then you can just drag and drop to your new hard drive to your heart's content. So that's the trick of how to get it to show up. It is kind of counterintuitive. Usually what happens once I do this is that picture that I threw in there, it's a duplicate. I don't want duplicate, so I'm going to remove the photo. Even though I've removed the photo that was in there, it stays and it doesn't disappear automatically. So you put it in so that Lightroom knows where to find it. It's basically kind of like showing Lightroom how to find the hard drive, and then you can delete that out of it and start putting your regular photos in. All right, I think that is it. After you do a bunch of moving around, the one thing that you're going to have to do is rerun your backups. What that will do is it will re-back up all of your files, and it will put the new where they are, the new locations of all the files into your backup system. So that's very important to do so that it doesn't think that they're lost. And so when you go back in, I've moved a whole bunch of files around in doing these videos. So that's what Time Machine is backing up right now on my system, is it's backing up all the places where I've moved files while I've been recording this. So that's the last thing you need to do. Time Machine will do it automatically, but just double check and make sure that it's running. Check it after an hour and make sure that it has run the backup. And when you open Time Machine, the preferences, it will come up and it will tell you, well, because mine's actively backing up right now, it's not showing this, but it will come up here and it will tell you when the last backup was completed, when the next backup's going to be done, and just make sure that those things make sense. All right, I think that's it. That is how you move some files around on your system. All right, have a great day.